podcast for those who suffer, which is everyone.
It's a space where we can speak honestly about what it feels like to be in desolate places without losing hope.
Welcome to In the Thicket. In today's episode, Jonathan Hilsden was our guest, and he joined us to talk about his journey in sobriety and about what it means to face yourself and to look inside and to deal with all the very complicated things that are there, but what it means for our healing and for our wholeness as we grow. Enjoy.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Everybody. Hey.
How are ya?
Oh, was that Australian? No, we don't know.
It was silly. Silly is what it was.
Yeah.
Welcome to In the Thicket. So if you just heard a guy's voice, if you're not watching on YouTube, we have a very special guest today, Jonathan Hilsden. Hey, Jonathan.
Yay!
Hey.
He did jazz hands. That was good.
I did jazz hands, yeah. I didn't know they were jazz hands when I did it. I was like, they were yay hands.
Okay, you just naturally jazzy.
And then you just attributed a weird, just a genre of music too.
I did, man.
It's definitely a thing. It's
yeah, no, I know. I've heard of jazz hands. I just feel like
it's my background from my 2 years of tap when I was younger. I did 6 years of jazz dancing, competitive jazz dancing.
What?
I know.
Also, you created robots? What the heck?
Yeah, we were talking before.
Okay.
I was in a robotics competition in high school.
Okay, Nicole and I have known Erin. We apparently we know her, but there's a bunch of stuff that's just coming out today that we're like, who are you?
You know her, but
you?
you don't know her.
You really don't.
Yeah.
I have 8 toes only. Just kidding. That's not true. That's not actually true.
And you did
10 toes.
Competitive jazz with 8 toes. Wow.
I did. And funny story, one time I had a cold, and when you're competitive, you don't break your focus for anything when you're dancing, So I definitely was doing a turn, and there was a big booger that came out of my nose. No. And because I turned, streaked right across my whole face, and I just had to leave it there until the end of the performance because you're not going to stop and Anyways, so now you guys know everything there is to know about me. Welcome.
The booger story was it.
It's the Erin show. No, Erin.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Changed the name. Yeah.
So guys, we have Jonathan today, and we always try to start off with something fun, and I was like, what are we gonna talk about? And I was like, we should talk about sports, because I am a big basketball fan, as everybody knows. And right now we're recording this in summer, and everything, it's playoffs and finals, and then I asked these ladies, I was like, can we talk about sports? And they were like, and then we're like, yeah, we can, because the Habs are playing. And we all have a stake in the game in some way. Either you hate them because you're a Leafs fan, or you love them because you're Canadian.
No, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. There are definitely different philosophies on that one. There's the people that are diehard. They're like, no, you can't go for the Habs no matter what, especially if you're a Leafs fan. And then there are those of us, and I think that's probably most of us, it's in Canada, we're like, oh, a Canadian team's in the final. Please have a Canadian team win. But there are some purists out there that are like, Nyeh.
Yeah.
I like that noise a lot.
Yeah.
That reminds me of Monty Python, or the knights that say,
Knights say Nyeh. Yeah.
No longer the knights that say. Yeah, I'm a bandwagon person. I'm on every bandwagon. So you would, from watching me at a final game of something, you would never know that I am a bandwagon person, because I got the lingo. I've got,
go hard when you go.
I go hard. Yeah. Rachel and I, we were watching, remember at it was a national campus ministry meeting, and it was the finals for Toronto and
it was the
whoever they were playing.
It was the game 6. It was the winning game.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Erin. Okay, you were there for it, but you got distracted, girl. I was like, you guys were talking. I was like, y'all talk. I don't know. I'm watching the game right now.
That's true. Yeah, I was drinking beer, so that's
it was fun.
It was.
Yeah,
fun.
that's right. We were in where were we?
In Antigonish, Nova Scotia.
Antigonish.
And Jonathan is very close to there in Halifax now.
Ish, yeah. I haven't been to Antigonish actually. I've only been in Halifax for 2 months now, and I just haven't. Honestly, I'm new, so I have friends. So don't feel sorry for me. I have friends, but I just don't have that many yet. And so, to going on road trips and things like that. That's something I am an introvert somewhat. I'm kind of half and half, I guess. But yeah, it's just not the same to just go alone and explore. I kind of like doing that with other people. So I'm sure soon I'm going to get a chance to see more of the province and beautiful nature all around.
You'll know that you really made it when you start calling it Antigonish instead of Antigonish, or like Yarmouth, people say, but it's Yarmouth, or like Dartmouth is like Dartmouth.
Really?
You know? Yeah.
I feel like that's like you learn that on the first day.
See,
it's like as soon as you say Dartmouth, you're just
people like,
everyone
foreigner.
thinks you're an idiot, and then from away.
That's right. Except for they're Nova Scotians, so they're like, oh, that poor person who didn't they seem like a nice gentleman who's just lost his way, you know, because they're so kind.
I'm sure he'll eventually go back to Ontario where he belongs.
I love that we're speaking with like Irish or Scottish.
I don't know. There's a cultural connection there, but yeah, they don't. I mean, the accents are a bit more distinct, I think, if you go to like Cape Breton, but in Halifax, it's more or less just Canadian average. I don't know.
Yeah. Canadian accents are, for all our non-Canadian listeners, it's like, I don't know, there's like the hockey player Canadian accent, you know, like there's that Canadian accent, and then there's like the metropolitan Canadian accent, which is like Toronto, Vancouver, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And then there's like the Far East. There's definitely in Alberta. There's, you know what? There are different Canadian accents.
I guess they're just not that. It's not that distinct, and there's a reason. Yeah. There's a reason actually that they're not very distinct.
I remember. So I'm from Winnipeg, and I remember going to Edmonton for something or other. I think I was a teenager, and I was in the West Edmonton Mall, and I had two people say, "Oh, you're from Winnipeg, aren't you?" And I was like, ha, ha. And they're like, oh, it's your accent. I have a Winnipeg accent, but you can only tell if I'm in Alberta.
That's so funny. What that is.
I can't hear that. I can't hear that.
Yeah, I can't hear
no idea.
Does anybody really say a boot though? Like, you know, when you watch American things and they're like, oh, go into a boot. Like, I've never heard a Canadian say that.
But that's just fun. They just, they just make fun of us, whatever.
But guys, here's the thing, okay? I immigrated when I was 11, okay? And we lived in Scarborough for a bit, and then we lived in Peterborough for a bunch. And the way that I say about it's not a boot, but it's not the same way that other people say it. Yeah,
that's
like
true.
It's like it is a bit of a it is that. Yeah. Instead of like about.
Yeah. That's even like Nova Scotia, like you say car. Like the way I say car is like you're going in the car, gonna go far in the car to the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Minnesotans talk like that too.
Take the car just over the road. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that wasn't sports. That was my intention. We didn't talk about sports at all. Well, I just want to say that right now I'm supporting the Phoenix Suns, and I really want them to win the championship because I mean, obviously the Raptors, but they're not a factor right now. So what are you gonna do? And also I do like Chris Paul, who's the point guard, and I love Monty Williams, who's the coach, who's a Christian, and he has an amazing story. So if you are interested in basketball at all or not even, you should look at Monty Williams' story. He's awesome. And then tune in and cheer on the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm cheering for the Phoenix Suns too. They're so exciting.
Who are they playing?
That one buzzer beater alley-oop, like the pass into, was it
Ayton? I feel like it was Ayton.
Oh my goodness, that was just.
It was
that. I was like, you know, when sometimes you like watch a thing and it's like, okay, I didn't do this. Why am I excited? Or it's not a movie. They're not trying to, conjure emotions out of me. But I watch it. I'm like, oh, I feel there's like an elation to be like, that was beautiful.
100%. I definitely cried when they won the Western Conference. I cried. I was like, I'm so happy.
It's all because they were so bad for a while, just kind of a blah team, and now they got the right guys and they're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys would like it, actually. Aaron and Nicole are like crickets.
Aaron and I are just staring at each other like,
I literally, like, half the things that just came out of your mouth, I'm like, you could have been speaking like Swahili and I would have no idea. Like, it would be totally different,
But you know what? You guys should check it out because the story of this team is as good as the basketball. Like their coach lost his wife 3 or 4 years ago, and he gave this super moving. I got real deep into his life because he's really, really cool. And he just gave this amazing moving eulogy, I guess, at his wife's funeral to his kids, and he said this thing where I was like, this is amazing. Actually, this is appropriate for our podcast.
I was gonna say we should have him on.
I know, right? Well, that would, if he would agree to be on our podcast, I don't even know, that'd be crazy. Wow. Yeah, we should try. I don't know. But yeah, he said to his kids, he was like, we're gonna be okay. We're going to be okay because God works good for those, like all things are good for those who love
Romans
him.
8:28.
Right.
Nice.
On the day of his wife's funeral, like he said that to his
Yeah.
kids with so much conviction, like on that day. And the like whatever the church they were in was like packed full of like, you know, NBA players and coaches and like what a witness. He's awesome. Anyways, I just
reminds me of the song, you know, It Is Well With My Soul.
Yes.
You know, it was written by a man who lost his wife and kids in I guess it was a shipwreck or something like that.
Yeah. That's right.
And it was just his life. I mean, just losing everything, and writes that song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we went deep in sports.
Yeah.
We went, you know, like sports, guys. Sports is it's a deep place. You should watch. But yeah, but that's not what we're talking about.
But this episode is about me and my story.
That's right. That's right. So introduce yourself. Yeah, but really, you know, tell us a little bit about your faith journey, who you are, a little bit.
Okay.
People.
Well, I guess I don't have to say I'm Jonathan. You can actually, I mean, if you're watching this on, you know, on video, you can literally see my name right on the screen. That's fun. I am 36 years old. I was born in Jerusalem in Israel. I was raised there and only moved to Canada when I was 26. And now I've been here about 10 years. So that might be a little confusing to people listening. It's just like, well, he has no accent, this, that, and the other. And if you see me, I don't look Israeli. It's because I'm not. My parents are Canadian. My dad's from Ontario. My mom's from Alberta. And they moved to Israel to do ministry almost 40 years ago. So about a year before I was born. And they've been there ever since. My dad's a pastor of a congregation there. And eventually I moved to Canada myself. So most of my family is still there. I have family all over really, but I guess that's a start. Yeah, that's me. I'm Jonathan, but let me, you guys want me to unpack a little more, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unpack it.
I thought that was the story. I thought you guys like, wow, people were like, that was great.
That was a great. All right.
Thanks guys for joining
Great to
in.
listen.
All right.
So yeah, I was really raised with awesome faith. My parents were awesome and taught me to love the Lord. And I made a decision as a young child that I wanted to follow Jesus. I mean, I guess I didn't understand it as deeply, but it was still an earnest commitment that's important. It counts, it means something. So, and I've seen the Lord just work in my life ever since then. And when I was in my mid-20s, I discovered this thing called the Catholic Church, which, of course, I'd heard of it before that. But I wasn't too drawn to it. I'd never really considered it. I wasn't raised, even though I was raised Christian, some people in the Protestant world are kind of anti-Catholic. That really wasn't how I was raised, but it was just something that I would never have thought about unless I had a friend who was Catholic and unless I was actually curious and wanted to understand it more. And I think what drove that desire for me is maybe, I think, it's all through grace. The Lord put on my heart, like his prayer, that they'd all be one. And so it was hard for me to understand why in Christianity that there were a lot of denominations. And then I started asking questions like, why, but by what authority? Where does the scripture come from? And everything, just a lot of questions. And I spent like a year just reading a lot of books. I don't know. 20 to 30 books on church history, patristics, the church fathers, just apologetics in general. And eventually, came to the conviction that Jesus really did establish a church with a real authority, and I should be in it, and without understanding all the implications, maybe at first of maybe the doctrinal distinctions, but kind of one by one, especially when it just came to, through reason, but also through, an assent to authority, even if I don't completely understand, came to the conviction that this is true. This is the fullness of truth. And I got to go there. So that coincided with me moving to Canada. I think it was a bit hard in Israel at the time because I wanted some community in the church. I had a lot of Christian friends that were awesome, but it was a bit, I can't blame them. It was hard to kind of understand me at the time. Like what's this thing? We didn't know that many of them where I was. I'm Catholics.
Yeah.
So, and the ones I'd met, which I think is the story for a lot of people, would be people who are, I would say, maybe ethnically Catholic, in the sense that, if you're Italian, maybe you've been baptized Catholic, or Polish, or various, but it didn't see really evidence of a real faith that would have made any sense to me. But then I started meeting awesome people, and that's when I moved to Canada. And I've been involved in ministry in one way or the other, deeply connected in the church since then. And how is that just kind of a good start to like who I am before we get into some of the nitty gritty?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I love it. Yeah. No, I mean, you in Canada too, you made this huge journey to the church, and then once you were in, it wasn't like you were just like, I'm Catholic and I'm going to live a life. Like, you have actually, you've been like a missionary, and you've done, so tell us like a little bit about that part of your journey in Canada, I guess, as a Catholic.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, when I first moved to Canada, I was looking for a job. I was working in the TV industry, in news specifically, right before I came to Canada. But I really didn't like it. I was thinking about a new career path and trying to figure out what that would be. But you know what? The opportunity came up still to work in my field. And if people have heard of, Salt and Light Television, Catholic TV station in Toronto, that was based out of Toronto, still is, I believe. And I got a job there, working, as a cameraman, editor, master control. And there were awesome young people there, awesome young, faithful Catholics who just welcomed me, and I found community really quickly, which was really cool. About 3 years after that, I met some people from Catholic Christian Outreach, or CCO, because they had started doing ministry at Ryerson. And although I was way past university age, I was closer in age to the missionaries themselves, and I got to know them well. And they encouraged me to go to Rise Up, that conference that maybe some of our listeners might know about. It's a pretty great conference put on by CCO over New Year's every year. And I was blown away just by the quality of the ministry, that they were really making that big ask, putting that challenge out there for people to put Christ at the center and to live for him. And I hadn't really seen it sort of expressed in that language a whole lot since becoming Catholic. And quite frankly, that didn't bother me. I didn't care, but I think I had another kind of reversion to evangelical zeal there. And so I think like less than a week after Rise Up, I applied because I knew that they were looking for somebody to work in communications. So I worked in communications there for 4 years in Ottawa. Awesome movement. I'm still a fanboy and a supporter. I love them. After that, I kind of discerned that I should try something a little bit different. So I started my video production service company. Company sounds fancy, but I mean, it was just me. I'm a sole proprietor. I made a logo and a website, so I guess I'm big time. Yeah, but
right.
So I really why I wanted to do that is I wanted to use the skills I had, and I found sort of a gap in a lot of corners of the church where video production and just like high quality media in general was either most of the people providing those services were outside of the price point. It's just like, well, if I have to pay $20,000, well, we're just not going to do video.
Right.
But because I had a lot of experience in end-to-end production, the pre-production, the writing, the camera work, the lighting, I kind of knew it all to an extent. I'm not sure I'd say I'm a master of any of them, but well enough that I could serve clients at a price point that allows them to do high quality media. So I did that for a couple of years. COVID hit, and I actually survived by the grace of God. I didn't, I didn't have to rely on some of the, like CERB or EI or anything like that. So the Lord provided opportunities there too. Even as more parishes are moving into live stream, I got more clients to help set up live streams and things like that. So that was okay. But this whole time I really got into video production as I was in my early 20s and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I never knew what I wanted to do. I was scared in high school. It's like, I don't like anything. So I don't think any job in the world is fun. Like, how could anybody work for a living? Like, working sucks. Because I think I didn't like school. I didn't, it was hard for me to imagine like enjoying being productive. And even through those 10 years of like video production, there's a part of me that's just like, not quite, it's a grind. But I was passionate about the message, right? It was a skill that I had, and I was passionate about the message more than the medium itself. I wasn't like, if you didn't pay me, I never take my camera anywhere. Like, there's those people that love it. They can take their drone and go shoot things, and they take their camera into the woods and shoot things.
Yeah.
I didn't like it enough to do that, honestly, which probably means I'd have a ceiling as far as my skill set, as far as my abilities. So that's just, but an opportunity came up recently, and that's why I just moved to Halifax, because St. Benedict Parish, which, I think it's a bit more well-known of a parish because the Divine Renovation organization kind of, for parish renewal was birthed from this culture here, from this ministry with Father James Mallon. And it was the first parish I ever saw that was hiring a full-time music person. So music was really where my heart was at, the whole time. I loved, over the years, leading worship and playing guitars and different instruments for people, for the Lord, really.
Yeah.
It just seeing that they were, looking for somebody full time, and I was just like, yes, like I in fact, my dad, I remember my dad saying, I think right before I came to Canada, and I don't think yet he was aware that I was becoming Catholic. We had that conversation later, but he said, you can go to Canada, and if you're moving to Canada, there's a lot of churches are looking for people who lead worship. Go apply for those jobs and whatever. I'm thinking to myself, I'm becoming Catholic, so that's not going to happen. But he's, the odd cathedral might hire, a choir director, but that's not me. But yeah, this parish was hiring, so. Looked into it, interviewed. It was the right fit. So I came out here about 2 months ago, and I love it.
It's
awesome.
Yeah,
So,
Halifax rocks.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, that's so cool. So this is awesome. So now is the point where we ask you to go into the center of your heart and tell us the most painful things about your
Yeah.
Great. Right.
Well, okay. This is the reason why I thought it was important for you to share all that stuff, because like you've had an incredible journey so far with your faith and with like your creative skills and like all this kind of stuff. But it, and I feel like this is so important because sometimes as Catholics or even just people, we have like the resume of our lives and it looks amazing, and it is amazing, but we all go through crap and like really hard stuff, And so while you were doing all this amazing stuff, you were also dealing with a bunch of really serious trials and challenges, including this journey with sobriety. And so I was wondering if you could share how those parallel, like how did that come into your life, and how did your faith impact that journey? And how has your faith been impacted by that struggle?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Good. I'm ready to go there. Okay. No, it's actually, no, I think I can speak about it. I've been pretty open about it for a while, so it's not like I'm digging somewhere where I haven't dug before. So this is okay. Well, it's interesting because when I've talked about my journey to make a decision that I need to avoid certain things that are otherwise not sinful, but they're ways that I would self-medicate some of my bigger problems. I'm speaking specifically about alcohol at this point. People would ask, well, was that before you put Christ at the center of your life? Was that before you had your conversion? I'm like, no, that was an issue far after I made a commitment, and I never really left faith. There's always doubts growing up, and there are always challenges in times in my life where I am living more virtuously than others. But I was certainly following the Lord, and he was at the center of my life. But there were certain areas even through that that were a real struggle. So a bit of context going back, I think around when I was even before 18, so I was in high school, depression was a real challenge in my life, So I just remember as a kid, and maybe part of it was just that I didn't like school. Now I was actually decent in school, and I guess I didn't have to work too hard to do well, but I just felt this pressure to always succeed, and I needed to do really well. I wanted to please the people around me, my parents, and I wanted people to be proud, them to be proud of me. And so there was just an anxiety about life in general, about like the future, like will I be successful? Will I make people proud? Will I, are things going to be okay? And those thoughts kind of came early in my life. And it hit a real kind of low point, I think when I was 18, where there was a bigger experience of just wanting my life to end. And, I don't know how to psychologize myself as far as, was it a cry for help that I really want to die? The point was, it was horrible, and I couldn't live life as it, under the conditions. And I say conditions, not because they were external conditions so much as they were just interior, just what was going on inside. I hated the feeling. I hated, I wanted that to go away. And, started drinking, which at the time was actually really quite innocent. By the time I was 18, it was legal in Israel, and I had no qualms morally about it. But I think what at first was just okay, just be able to enjoy life, which is a great thing. It wasn't long before I realized I couldn't quite feel at ease until there was a bit more substance in me. A bit more alcohol to ease the anxiety, social anxiety, or just general pain in life. And there were periods where I think I drank less or more, but it eventually kind of got to the point where I wasn't kind of like a drunk in the sense that I was, dysfunctional and couldn't handle life anymore. It was just the sort of, I averaged, at least 3 beer a day, or whatever it is, which a lot, if somebody is, has a background in alcoholism, might say, well, that's really not, that's not a big deal. And so maybe not, because my issue wasn't like I was letting my life get destroyed and I'd end up on the streets. It was really that I couldn't function emotionally without taking the edge off. I couldn't have one drink and stop. It just wasn't something I could do. So, praise be to God. Like at some point, I was seeing a counselor, a great, awesome Catholic man, loves the Lord in Ottawa. And I talked to him about it. I said, this is, I've thought about it. I thought about maybe trying to give this up because I think it'll be good for my life. And he says, what you're describing sounds like you kind of have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol or with self-medicating. And it was nothing like, we didn't have to use dramatic terms like, am I not, I didn't have to find out, am I an alcoholic? Am I in that category? It was more, you have this unhealthy relationship. See, he says, I'm going to challenge you to try to not have a drink until our next session. And at the time we were meeting more frequently because it was kind of early in our sessions, and I needed a bit more help. So, and the thought at the time was like going a day without having my standard 3 drinks or more was just like terrifying. So, but somehow just by the grace of God, I took him up on the challenge, and for about 4 days, just pretty horrible headaches and just felt like garbage. And eventually was like, I can't believe I actually did that. I've actually managed, but I'd still, every evening I'd be like, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know how to handle this reality, this new frame of mind here, and people talk about it scientifically with neural pathways, and, basically it's complicated what habits do to us, even physiologically. So, I managed to go into the next session. He's like, cool, you want to try that again? I'm like, oh, okay. But honestly, since before that session, I just never had a drink. So, at first I just kept using language that was like, I don't think this is possible. Like, I've thought about to think I might never have another drink in my life. And you're just like, settle down, man. Maybe you will. Maybe you will. Don't think about that. Just say, I'm not going to have a drink today. And so every day I just said, I'm not going to have a drink today until I stopped thinking about it. And that was about 5 years ago now. So, Um, yeah, that's kind of the what has happened in my life when it came to that particular issue. And of course, we self-medicate in other ways too. Like when you quit one habit, like
Mm.
excessive TV has been an issue. So sobriety has more than, one meaning really, like in that way, because you can be sort of sober as in not intoxicated, but you can be completely emotionally absent, which is a type of, lack of sobriety when you keep self-medicating with whatever it is that stops you from facing yourself and living life on its own terms and accepting reality. And that has continued to be a struggle in other ways, finding other ways to not have to face the reality of whatever it is. Like loneliness is hard. There's just all sorts of things, that we go through, right? So that's my journey, and it's ongoing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Erin.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I was gonna say thank you for sharing that. And also I resonate so much. I think it's good for those who have, like substance abuse struggles or things like that. Like it's good not to kind of equivocate and say that,
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
all is necessarily as destructive as the other, or potentially anyways. But at the same time, it's so true what you say about like self-medicating and how it's like, because I've definitely found that myself, like
Mm.
like I want to not watch TV. Like I don't want to waste my life. Basically, this is the thing. Like I don't want to waste my life doing these things that I know are not good for my relationship with God. They're not like good for my productivity. They're not like things like that. But at the same time, they serve this kind of need in me, or this place in me, for distraction, or for like, for me, I find it's a lot of like distraction, because like for me with chronic illness, that's one thing, of like some being distracted from like thinking about if I'm in pain or something like that. But at the same time, there's definitely that, like a desire to not go to those things, as because I want the Lord to be my medication, right? Like I
Mhm.
want that, but it's not, but then I can see all the ways where he's not my medication, but I desire
Right.
him to be my medication. So how have you, like, what does that look like for you? Or how has it kind of, how have you
Mm.
experienced like that change or that growth,
Yeah. Well, one of the prayers is, for me is like, Lord, I want you, not emotionally, but I'm willing to want you more, and so I want you to make me want you more.
Mhm.
So it's that kind of, it's that dynamic of like, I can't make myself feel certain ways. I mean, I guess we do have some control, of course, just with our, whatever, diet and exercise, behavior, sleep, all these things to allow us to be more at peace, allow us to be more whole. But there's certain things that we can't make ourselves do or think or feel, to feel fulfilled, to feel what the beatific vision is, like really what we want, like our hearts are made for him, and we're restless until we rest in him. Right.
Mhm.
So I want him, but when I, for whatever, for all multiple reasons, I can't bring myself to seek him. But I still want the results, which is perfect love, perfect peace. And if I don't sense I'm receiving that in full consolation through prayer and just through a good life of virtue, just following the Lord and being at peace with that, being at peace with the reality that I live, I'm going to try to get that beatific vision. I'm trying to get heaven on earth in ways that in through, I guess, worship of the creation rather than the creator.
Mhm.
Finding the other things, the idols. And one of those idols, at least for me, was in order to get that feeling, was to sense that reality, the beatific vision, was numbing all my negative emotions and senses with alcohol.
Mhm.
And yeah, the journey has been actually learning to live, learning to to be okay with okay in a sense. I think it was the same therapist that I was speaking to about the alcohol issue. I was talking to him as like, I just can't sit in my room or at home without the drink and feel okay, and we'd also talked about like when, I started observing, when is it when I don't feel okay? When is it when I feel disconnected, or whatever, and I said, you know what? It's actually after I've been like at a big party with a lot of people and I feel like I never really connected to anybody. I'd be driving home afterwards and being like, my soul wanted communion. It wanted depth. It wanted, and quite, and actually quite in two ways, it wanted marriage. It wanted it. There was, a lot of us young single adults going to events. There is that hope, like maybe there's somebody there that I'm going to connect to, and then we're going to get romantic, and so there's that desire there of hoping that maybe something clicks with somebody so that you'll be fulfilled. But even marriage is an icon of the love of God, right? So we're still looking for that, and that's how it would be for me. I'm looking for that. I'm looking for divine marriage, like that depth of the Lord, but I'm also seeking it in my sort of twisting my vocation to fulfill me in that way. And maybe if I just felt disappointed or felt like I felt a bit orphan-like I'm not part of a family right now. There were those feelings. And, I was challenged to just, after something like that, maybe just sit on your couch for an hour and after, and just deal with it, cry, whatever. And crying has actually been amazing. He says, just say to yourself after that hour, it's like, that didn't kill me.
Yeah.
That didn't kill me. I'm still here, and what the amazing thing was is, it really is amazing. Just the tears, they bring something. I don't understand it. I don't understand the gift of tears. I don't understand how just like physiologically crying, how that works. Like there's water and salt coming out of here. And somehow I feel better. Like I don't get it.
Sometimes out of the nose as well.
But I know,
I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah. But I know that not being dead inside is a good thing. And I say dead inside as a joke because none of us are really dead inside, but that's not how God made us. But yeah, when you feel like it's not good, we were joking about it earlier, just like, oh, those deep emotions, just keep them down there. That's not good. So yeah, facing that has been really healing, and embracing that and letting the Lord work through that.
Okay, so I really like, or what was hitting me as you were speaking was a lot of things, but one of the things is just that, when you're talking about alcohol, you're saying, okay, 3 drinks a day. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, or when you look at sort of a diagnosis of alcohol in the, official diagnostic criteria or whatever, it's maybe not there, right? And yet you're noticing, okay, this is something that's keeping you from living a fully real life, like being real with yourself and with whatever's going on, right? And I'm just thinking, I was reflecting on my own life, and especially when you talked about how you've been crying more, like tears more. And, I think one of the things that I would say I've self-medicated without even realizing that is school, is like studying a lot. And I can see this sort of turning point in my life from when I, going from sort of obsessively studying all the time and kind of numbing other stuff that was happening without even realizing I was doing that, to a switch where it happened when I was like, okay, I need to kind of live with this other part of myself that's the not academic part, And that was like 2 years ago. And that was when I decided, like, okay, I've like hardly dated in my life at all. I need to be open to this in my life. And like, okay, I've just like cried so much since then. I'm not restating sound terrible, but like I've felt also, I think, just so much more alive. Like, okay, now the real stuff is coming up, and it takes so much time, right? But I'm like, I've embraced sort of crying almost daily as just something that, I don't know, it's just, if there's something happening there, like you say, whatever it is, But I think that's important because there's so many, any age of people, but sort of young adults, I think especially, like there's so much in our lives that can fill that, or that can give the illusion of filling the loneliness, or filling or taking the stress off, and that we might do those things and it might look actually like something that's totally fine or healthy, but we're not actually fully alive, and we don't realize it, right? So I just think it's a great kind of just wake up call, but not in a like bash you over the head wake up call, but just like, hey, like there's more, we can be more alive.
Thanks. Yeah. I think kind of, pivoting off of that, there's also the aspect of, even though it wasn't, I guess, extreme, like, because it wasn't destructive to my life in the sense that I couldn't function, with my job or whatever. And even, even once I took that away, certain things came, like I became more ambitious and more believing that I can do, that I can do things, and more, marketable, I guess, as in the workforce. So it's like, yeah, there might've been those benefits, but to stopping, but what the real problems were lack of connection, and it's a vicious cycle, because I feel the lack of connection, and therefore I go to this, this form of replacement, or trying to compensate for that. And the kind of irony is that it's the cycle, it's going the other way, to where I was not able to emotionally mature enough during those years to really invest well in relationships, and to connect properly to other people. So I think now, I mean, there's providence. I don't understand God's ways, but I'm 36 and single, and that's, not a crazy thing. But when I was young, I had a strong desire to get married, and, I thought I would get married young and everything like that. And so there was that longing in my heart. And the interesting thing is, like, with that longing, but then this issue, it kept me from it. It didn't help my case. It didn't help. It didn't help if I wanted to get married younger. Now, the Lord's will, like his permissive will, and he has his ways, and the way he's making it turn out the best with what's happened. That's what he does. But I know I didn't help my own journey towards seeking the Lord's will in my life, vocation wise, through those issues. So I can't blame it on other people. It was me. I could not be emotionally connected enough or committed enough to people, even friendships. There would be an aspect to where I wanted to be on the receiving end of emotional support without giving it. And what's commonly said about people who struggle with, sobriety in various forms, just addicts, addict is a broad term, but basically people self-medicating or escaping, there is from the time that, like, you started in that, where you started avoiding life, that kind of, your maturity gets stunted at that point. So for me, probably somewhere in my 20s, was when it was just, when this was my way of life. I feel now, since I've been sober, the real struggle is that I'm emotionally in my 20s. And I'm a 36-year-old man, and I know I look young and all that, but but also
You're
I feel
36? That's crazy.
it is weird, because a lot of my peers who are my own age, and have families and stuff, I just feel little. I feel, there's this aspect that the Lord's like, right now, he's calling me to just, like, grow up, and I wouldn't have been able to grow up had I not gone through that and made the decision to let God work on that area of my life, And so it wasn't, if I kept drinking, I might've been fine. I would have always had a stable job, everything like that. But the Lord wants us to move from, I guess St. Paul talks about, like, milk to meat, like we need to chew on the greater things here. So, for vegetarians, sorry, but you know what I mean? But yeah, it's like, there's that thing. It's like the things that would terrify me, even responsibilities of, like, raising kids. I'm just like, I could never do that, because I'm just a kid myself. And then just starting to realize, like, through sobriety, the Lord is showing me, I can't do anything without him, really. It's through his grace that I could, so whatever his calling is for the future in my life, whatever the vocation, or, whether it's remaining single and do it for his glory, and grow and live that out, live that selflessness out in whatever vocation it is. But I don't think that would have been possible. I would have just kind of stagnated at a certain point in life and just never grew up.
Yeah. It's so interesting to me, like you talk about it, Nicole, and you talk about it, Jonathan, about emotions, and just the ability to feel our emotions. Because there's a part of it that I think is wise in terms of the spiritual life, that we don't let our emotions lead, or just our lives in general, that we don't just let our emotions lead everything, because sometimes or a lot of times even they're not rational, like
Right.
there's like we feel and they're connected to things that we might have experienced in childhood or in other things, right? So, but they also, I think sometimes we go the opposite extreme, where it's like we don't let our emotions tell us anything, or we don't like let them be. And this is like part of the medicating, right? Is because then they're going to bring us back to these painful things, or they're just painful. Like, it's painful to be in pain. That's the most profound thing I've ever said in my life. It's painful to be in pain, but but it is true, right? So, and even how important, like Nicole has talked about this before, Rachel's talked about it, you're talking about it, like even in my experience in this last little while, like working with the spiritual director that I have now, and some of the things that she said, emotions are irrational, or or like just allow yourself to feel this. When you're feeling this, just let yourself feel this. And it's like, yeah, it's such a gift to have somebody to walk with you in that, or just even to like remind us, like that it's okay. Always, it's okay to feel what we feel.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I call it like psalm therapy. It's, just when you read the Psalms, it's just like, well, there's definitely not a stoic there, definitely facing it,
And we have a choice about what we do to act in that, right? Like to act and to choose to, like, that's important. And I don't think we can forget about that, but like the feelings themselves are feelings. Sorry, again, so profound.
The feelings are feelings, the thoughts are thoughts.
Well, Erin, I remember when I was talking to my therapist about this too, because I was like, I don't want to be driven by my feelings, and you're trying to let me talk about all these things now they're coming up, and I'm like, and what her response was, she's like, well, like, if you don't know what kind of feelings are there, they're going to be driving you to do all kinds of stuff without even your consent or awareness. So she's like, it's only when you're actually able to look at them, face them, feel them, cry through them, now you're actually able to be rational. You're able to choose what to do with that. But if you don't let them come up, you're being driven into all kinds of stuff you have no idea, right? So I think that's like, you have to go through the stuff, and it's I mean, I don't like
the thing that I think that, okay, feelings are not rational, but they are information. They are information. Like they're
data.
They are data. And I think when we ignore them, we don't have the whole picture. And we that's exactly what you're talking about, Nicole. And I but it's really hard. It's so funny because a lot, maybe on this call, all four of us are people who are maybe more comfortable with our thoughts than our feelings, even though, like, I am a feeling person. Like, I'm such a, like, I have really, and I think that's why maybe all of us on the call are like this. Like, my emotions are really high. I'm not an even keeled person. So when I respond to something interiorly, it's a really high response. But if most people that know me, actually, like, I'm a cheerful person, I'm like, but I don't actually have a lot of, I don't get angry very easily. I don't, I'm not a super sad person, but I realized actually in the last probably 5 years of my life, that I am on the inside. I really am. And that's where kind of what you're talking about, Jonathan, in terms of self-medicating has totally come into play. For me, it's like 100% TV, like, and everyone who knows me in ministry or like in my life knows that
YouTube,
that's a problem that I have, right? Like YouTube, like I have all the streaming still, like all my, my drug of choice is like readily available to me all the time. But it's like something that I've really been thinking about. So even as now, like if I'm watching something and I know I'm watching to avoid, and it's weird because it's not to avoid a situation, it's not to avoid a physical circumstance, but it's 100% to avoid what I think almost the irrational nature of what I'm feeling. Like I'm like, why in the heck do I have this feeling? Like, I don't want to have this feeling, you know, like get it out. Like, I don't want it.
Yeah.
And so then I watch whatever, I do whatever, and it numbs that feeling because I don't think I should have it to begin with. So there's a lot of also like judgments that we have about how we feel.
Yes.
That get, you know, that kind of stop us from actually
as another layer.
That's right.
Like just being brave and dealing with it and then actually moving on because that's the thing. You never move on from the feelings that you end up numbing. They're still there. They're just, you know,
right. It's like you have, you know, right, there's like the feeling and then there's the shame that I feel this feeling and then we numb that. And so it's almost like the process is, okay, I have to let myself take away the thing I'm numbing and then first feel the shame. Like, oh yeah, I'm ashamed that I feel this feeling and feel that feeling. And then we can get to the other feeling, you know?
That's going to stunt your growth forever. I mean, that's just going to, if you keep repeating that over and over again, you're not going to move anywhere. You know, it's going to continue and it's going to come back and going to come back until you move past it into something, you know, and then grow in another area of struggle in your life. Right.
I was just going to say the other thing that I've been thinking about is, you know, this whole idea that you went through this journey while you were in your relationship with the Lord, like doing all this missionary, like, and I think sometimes we have, because I mean, same with me. For me, I've never really been away from my faith. I would say like I had my big conversion moment in high school. And then I've just been with God in that sense, like ever since then. So it's not really been something that's fluctuated in my life, but I think we have this idea in our minds. A lot of times younger people like in university or in high school will see missionaries or will see people, you know, young adults in the faith. Like, yeah, like you've got to figure it out. But it doesn't work like that. And I think that's really important for people to know, like discipleship is about entering into this messy stuff and like depending on our tendencies, because some people, like I'm similar to you where my tendency is more escape artist stuff and some people are more like, you know, workaholic or like there's it, which is also another form of escape, but there's all kinds of so I think it's good for us to have these conversations and be like, hey, you know, you might be in the Lord, but there's still stuff that we're missing and stuff that we need to work through and deal with. So
I mean, that's you know, it's, you know, I mean, we wouldn't even need the sacrament, you know, at least the sacrament of reconciliation if the whole plan was, well, as soon as you're baptized, then you're good. Yeah, then you're good. It's like, no, the fact is we still live with the wounds, you know, we are wounded and we're in the process of being restored to that communion with the Lord, right? And it's that process is often messy, and if that doesn't happen now, it's still going to happen if we want to spend eternity with the Lord, you know. So
purgatory or now,
just it's going to happen. You know, purification's got to happen somewhere. So, and in many ways, I think we can just tell through the experience of life is the longer you put something off, the you know, the harder it is. You know, it can get really, really hard. So,
Jonathan, you said the word process a couple times, talking about this is, you know, it's all a process.
Because my vocabulary is small.
No. No, you're fine. It's okay.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, thank you. I was worried. Now I'm secure again, and that's what I need. That's really what I needed.
You're welcome. No, my little sister. So shout out to Anna, who sometimes listens to this podcast. Anna, when she's talking to me about just life and stuff, she almost always closes off with, it's just a process. And that's like her thing. And so now that's what I think of whenever we're talking about this stuff and talking about the process. It's like, it's just, I can't even do it right. We'll have to like get her to do it or something.
That's right.
But anyways, it's good.
Should have a sound bite of Anna saying that and just like,
on
Instagram. Like, it's just
like put it
on like random posts and like, on Instagram.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, what was that thing about, like, you know, how is it the angels fly? And I mean, obviously,
because
like,
they take themselves lightly.
Yeah, because they take themselves lightly or something like that. Yeah.
Chesterton.
And I think was it Chesterton? Yeah. Yeah, I believe that's true. You know, and that's a big part of the process too, is just being like partly viewing yourself as a toddler in a way. Like I know I talk about like growing up and growing, you know, in responsibility and because we're all called to be mothers and fathers, no matter whether that is in the natural sense or otherwise. We need to grow into that, but at the same time, we're children of God.
Yeah.
And when we're falling over, I mean, what kind of father when his kid's trying to walk is just like, that is embarrassing. It's he's I just have to see he's when I fall, he's just laughing, not at me, but just enjoying being with me and just really wanting to pick me up.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to take yourself lightly, and also a good way to be merciful to others. So a lot of even in my journey there, it was a long time sort of, because I tended to self-blame a lot. There was a lot of like, oh, everything's my fault. I internalized problems, and some people have more anger externally. This person did that to me, but I actually had to grow in getting angry, in acknowledging, what has been done that's out of my control and maybe by other people. So, in talking about viewing myself as a child and allowing God to love me as a child, that my falling is a bit more like, again, like a toddler or, just a little baby learning to walk. Having that mindset and not taking myself seriously actually helped in healing when it came to starting to think about what others may have done to me, things that could be, maybe everyone has experiences in their families of origin, no matter how good your parents are, or just maybe things that teachers said or other kids said. But in viewing myself that way, it brought healing, because I was able to start viewing others that way. When I get those feelings and I say, where is this coming from? What were the experiences that maybe even just in my subconscious where these wounds opened up? But then when I started to, I remember I was sitting in front of an icon. I have the icon of Jesus, and I just, lit candles in my room, and I'm just praying there. And I started thinking about a certain situation in my life when I was younger that just really, like, at the time was almost traumatic. It just broke me, and it was somebody else's fault. And I was both reflecting on God's love for me as a child, and then I was journaling, and I was praying for the other person who had hurt me, and then my heart began to break for that person, viewing them as that toddler, that toddler that didn't always get their needs met by their human experience, right? And I started to just view others differently because of that, and that started bringing more context, more data, and more, I think, just a more true approach to who others are in light of God, and who others are in light of how I interacted with them in life, in the hurt that their brokenness, brought towards me, and vice versa, and just started seeing other people as just like wounded children that are just loved so deeply. And then it became much easier for me to forgive and to love,
and to face those wounds that people have maybe inflicted on you knowingly or unknowingly. No, that's so good. Oh man, we reaching the end of our time.
What?
Not the end of,
I know.
We're having so much.
Not the end of time as a whole.
No.
Yeah, not yet.
Maybe.
The apocalypse is among us.
I pray all the time, Jesus, come.
Yeah, come, Lord Jesus.
No, you don't even pray. You're like, I think, Lord, it's time.
That's what I do say. I think Jesus is coming soon.
This should be a real good time.
I think my timing is good timing, huh?
Yeah.
I like my timing.
That's right.
Yeah, he usually doesn't go for that. I don't know why, but he doesn't.
So much,
but yeah, no, thanks so much, Jonathan. I feel like, so much of what we talk about, we could just talk about for forever. But I think this, for me anyways, it's a very relatable thing. Like, we're talking about your journey in sobriety and all this kind of stuff. And it sounds like it's such a unique experience, but actually there's something so universal about what you're saying. And I think, for us as disciples, in the thicket, that's the whole point of this podcast, is to say, like, okay, we have to deal with where we are and what we're feeling and what God is saying to us in that moment. So thank you.
Yeah.
Oh man, thank you.
Yeah.
Like this was just delightful. It was great.
Yeah.
Such a
Yeah.
good.
And I'm a fan. Everybody needs to know I'm a fan of the Thicket.
That's true.
So,
Yeah. That's.
oh, you know that. Cool.
I did know that. I think, yeah, because I think Rachel said that you listen to some of them. But
he knows what we're
it's
about.
so fun.
I know.
It's also so fun to like.
I would
have
sometimes just
somebody
send
who, like,
text, be like, "That was a good one, Rachel. Good one."
Which is so helpful. If like any listeners should know this. Anything nice that you have to say about us, tell us. We like hearing nice things about us. So
that's right. That's true. Yeah, exactly. And we can shout out like constructive things too. Yes, 100%.
Yes,
we could shout out, like a good shout out for this week would be Mr. Campanelli.
Oh my gosh, Mr. Campanelli, I love you so much. Thank you so much for listening to to our podcast.
So can you
tell chaplain.
He's your old chaplain, yes.
So
he sends us like lovely notes saying like, good or like with his thoughts on episodes and stuff, and it's really lovely. So
good.
Yeah, Mr. Campanelli, shout out to you. He was my high school chaplain. He is just such an amazing holy guy. He has an awesome family. And we, like a bunch of us in high school, just stayed in touch with him like ever since I'm in my 30s and I still keep in touch with him because he's just one of those people, and he's been listening to our podcast. So thanks, sir.
Yeah. And then we get to shout out you while you're on the podcast with us. Shout out Jonathan Hilsden.
Whoa, shout out Inception.
That's right.
Yeah. Meta.
Right.
Sweet. And Nicole has a fun God wink. I'm excited for this one.
Okay, so this is the story that I actually typically tell people, like, oh, what's like one of your most embarrassing moments? And if I'm with a bunch of Catholics or people who will like get this is the story that I tell. And the funny thing is, like, Jonathan actually involves you. I'm pretty sure that this is the memory. So this is like, 6 years ago ish, and I was in Ottawa for a CCO mission trip to Mexico, and we were having our training. And I think, Jonathan, I had seen you perform in Toronto with Joe Zambon like a few years previous.
Yep.
And so I have this thing where I remember people's faces. I mean, this is probably most people. You remember people's faces, and then if you see them out of context, you're like, why do I know this person? Yeah. And so I remember we were getting a tour of the CCO like headquarters office. And then you were there, and there's a few people sitting in the hallway, and I saw you, and I was like, oh my gosh, I recognize this person. And then I completely zoned out, and I'm pretty sure I just like stared at you until I figured out, oh, he's the musician.
Yeah, I found that weird too.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Very weird. It was, but then as soon as I zoned in, I realized like there was people in the hallway because you were all praying the rosary together, and I just like blurted out, interrupted the rosary, and I was just like, So anyways, and then I was like,
wait,
okay,
like you blurted out like, oh, that's him, that's that guy.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I saw you perform at whatever.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And then I realized.
And blessed is the fruit of that womb, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. literally. Yeah. And so I was very embarrassed. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna like pretend this never happened. And then I was like, anyways, and left the room and never came, whatever. And I was like, okay, whatever. No one's gonna remember this. Stuff happens all the time, whatever. And then like 3 years later, another CCO staff who I guess was there moved to Winnipeg, where I was living at the time. And so I introduced myself, hey, welcome to Winnipeg, whatever, at some young adult. And she was like, oh, I think we haven't met, but I remember you. And she remembered me because she was in the hallway during that incident.
So
that
funny.
is how she knew who I was.
She was like deep in prayer and this like random person.
Yeah,
like
this
random.
How could you forget? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's I don't know if that's quite a God wink, but it's
here's the God wink,
fun.
and now we're all on the podcast together.
There we go.
Yeah,
That's
look
the
at
God
that.
wink. Yeah, another meta God wink.
Yeah, meta God wink. Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of those Inception God winks, meta like,
awesome.
yeah. So God is outside of time, so
It's
just,
true.
And space.
And space, yeah. Now we're gonna move into physics.
No.
Meta.
No.
Let's not do that. But, yeah. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank
much.
you, everybody. This is such a great conversation. We're so grateful that everybody who listens tunes in. Let us know if you have nice things to say about us. Please let us know. If you have constructive criticism, let us know. You can email us or follow us on Instagram at In the Thicket Podcast.
And particularly if you have nice things, you can leave us a review.
Do that.
On Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen.
Yep. All right. God bless everybody. You'll hear from us, I guess, next week.
Yeah. Bye.
Jazz hand.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of In the Thicket. If you like what you hear, give us a rating and hit that subscribe button. We have new episodes every Monday with more stories and honest conversations about life when the going gets rough and the hope and humor amidst it all. We'd love for you to join our community on Instagram and Facebook at In the Thicket Podcast. While you're there, let us know how we can pray for you. God bless and see you next week.